Hi, everybody. Welcome, 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 whether it be morning, noon, or nighttime, wherever you are. Hello, I'm Kirsty. I am your host for today. It's a pleasure to be here at another great event from Group Futurista. I want to say hi to the whole team who've been working tirelessly backstage to put on this event for you. And welcome to you as the attendees and participants. Great that you can join us today. I want to say hi to all of our keynote speakers, our media partners, and of course our sponsor, First Orion. Without you, we couldn't put on amazing events like today. So a little bit about me. My name's Kirsty. I am a radio presenter, event host, and a DJ. So I've got a very, very busy season coming up next month, 1st of December tomorrow. Lots of Christmas parties, New Year and New Year's Eve gig, and other bits and pieces. I've turned on the Christmas lights a couple of times this year, but it's a pleasure to be here. Love hosting these events, and to me it's all about collaborating, it's about connecting with one another, it's about being inspired and inspiring each other as well. It's all about learning, so I'm really chuffed to be involved in these events. So today is the Future of Digital Customer Experience 3.0. Housekeeping rules: please stay muted. Please, for the latecomers joining us today, would really appreciate it. And we will also have a panel discussion a little bit later on. And of course, normally I would be hosting these events at hotels or conferences. And if there is a fire alarm, I would put you in the right direction. But of course, if there's a fire or the fire alarm goes off at your house or your company, don't wait for me to say. Please excuse yourself and get yourself out nice and safe. We're also on the socials today on Instagram and Twitter. So how about a selfie and show us what you're up to today? And you can use the hashtag, which will be FODCE 2021. That's FODCE 2021. We'd love to see who's participating today. And also feel free to pop your details in the chat. So I think we'll make a start, will we? This is the first presentation. This is coming from Brian Powers, who is a global customer experience officer for Likewise. And Brian will be talking about advancing CX analytics maturity for better customer experience. Over to you, Brian.
Brought on just a year and a half ago to help develop this customer experience practice. And a lot of this I depend on customer experience analytics, which is the topic today, and how we're advancing CX analytics maturity to improve the overall customer experience and journeys. I've been in the contact center industry and customer experience for over 20 years. My first role was in call center consulting. I've run call centers for Verizon in the Mid-Atlantic region in the US. I've been in the enterprise feedback management, or VOC, industry for a number of years, running programs for AT&T, Sprint, Bell Canada, and several others. And most recently, I've been involved with customer experience in a holistic omni-channel view, as I believe many of you are as well. I'm not going to talk through individual vendors, and I can recommend them if people follow up with me offline, but I want to be more vendor agnostic. The first key point I'd like to make is KPIs have evolved significantly over time. And those of us that have been in the industry more than a decade would more than likely agree and be able to add to what I believe are the key KPIs that we've seen emerge over the years and been discussed as, the North Star. So in the 80s, many of us recall USAA as championing the best average speed of answer, or ASA, being below 10 seconds. And in modern day, we know that's more a function of good workforce management, optimization, scheduling, and planning around key days, weeks, events. So you've got the right staffing, number of people who are able and skilled to handle those calls. So more a matter of just whether that's something that you want to achieve, but is that really correlated strongly enough to the end North Star metric, whichever your company may choose, or not, is going to be up to you. In the 90s, the focus was on average handle time, or AHT. We want to get the customer off the phone on their way so the agent can quickly get onto another phone call. And we looked at how many calls did an agent handle during a day as something that we would incent. So gone was the opening, the warm opening, the empathy, or the tagline at the end. And it was more about how many calls can I take during a day, which led to obviously first call resolution. In customer care, a lot of times we call it squeezing the balloon. If you focus on AHT, your calls are shorter, then your first call resolution falls. Because really we want the agent to do some digging, understand the overall intent of the customer's inquiry today, and then follow up and say, is there anything else I can do for you today? And earnestly mean it. Or use AI and determine if you're getting product A, maybe you're interested in product B. Or if you're changing your address here, would you like to change your address there, right? So you're preventing that next call, which typically is measured within the next 5-day period. Followed by Net Promoter Score, right? Again, another holy grail North Star metric, thanks to Fred Reichheld around 2001 or 2. This is the question of, would you recommend our product or service to your friends, family, and neighbors? And if so, please give us a 10 and not a 0 on this scale. So this is one that many of us have used, the boardrooms are using, a number of people have their bonuses are also related back to improvement or stability of a Net Promoter Score. Really just a tipping point or starting point until you've applied filters and truly understand what's driving this. Next level of effort, around 2010, the interest was how easy or difficult was it to have your question or issue resolved today? And this is omni-channel. So whether you're dealing with chatbot, agent, walk-in, phone call, are these channels being optimized for your preference so that your inquiry is being resolved to your satisfaction and it wasn't that hard to resolve it? Which brings us more to modern day, and we could debate if this is a metric that all companies should look at, but this is one that certainly I trumpet, and that is interactions per year per customer. Why does a customer need to interact with you at all for any service-related issues or questions? For example, if they make a purchase on Amazon, how frequently do they need to call or speak to an agent or check on anything? That in Amazon's model is they already push out status, so you don't have to come back to the website. You don't need to chat with them. You don't need to make a phone call to them to track anything. And if anything's delayed, they proactively provide that status as well. So across omni-channel, how often does a customer have to interact with you when they have an issue? And how many of them are having an issue? So instead of how quickly are we answering that call, getting it resolved, getting really good at apologizing, how are we avoiding that? And why do customers need to contact you at all? I think many of us can resonate how this goalie feels, right? Many times we're in a board meeting or meeting with a client, and we always point to, the scoreboard, and we have all these different metrics that we're trying to accomplish. And you could have 19 out of 20 be green, and that one that's in red is the one that's going to be brought up in question. Well, what are you going to do about AHT, abandon rate, cost per call, number of calls per customer, after call work, etc.? And there's just no way to be able to guard against that. So that's why we want to focus on using these types of tools that drive the best change, give us the insight so we can monitor across all these, find out which are emerging as trouble spots or most likely points of friction, and dive in with these solutions. So this is, back to the overall topic for today, this is the key that I see for all the main emerging tools that help with CX analytics, and I'll go through each one on the next slide. Customer journey analytics, this is more like a holistic view of how a customer's journey traverses across all your touch points. So working with usually an outside vendor, you would provide them with all of your IVR files, your customer emails that have come in, a track record of all the calls, anybody who's chatted or used a chatbot, and feed this into this powerful engine. And so then they're going to show you the path. Did the customer first go to the website? Fail. Go to a chat? Fail. Try the chatbot? Fail. And then make a phone call. IVR, did that resolve their inquiry? Maybe. And then did they speak to an agent? And then when you understand what that customer was trying to accomplish on the call, you can understand, is this a path that needs improvement and across which touch points? This is especially valid and helpful when you want to assess the return on investment on improvements of certain projects or technologies that you've implemented into this ecosphere. No longer do we call these surveys. Now it's enterprise feedback because we're in an omni-channel world. We want to understand how this customer felt about the end-to-end journey. Not just was something repaired or something was shipped or did they get their device, but how was the overall process, right? Back to Net Promoter Score. End-to-end journey, everything from what was promised, how was the ordering experience, how was it delivered, was there any follow-up necessary afterwards, and what was their satisfaction level across the entire journey. Text analytics not only applies to verbatims provided in a survey, but also during a phone call with an agent. So with today's modern technology from a variety of vendors, they listen to the call, it's recorded, and then in real time or near real time, the text analytics engine kicks in, picks up on semantics, keywords. It can categorize what the call was about and help you identify ongoing trends, perform quality assurance on your agents, and all this done in near real time. The IVR has been around for decades, right? This is press 1 for service, press 2 for sales, etc. So we can leverage the insights and analytics from this to see what types of customers are calling and using this valuable touch point, how many are having calls contained in the IVR versus calls deflected, and how are these being, are they bouncing around in the system? Is this being used effectively? Are they prompts not proper? And do we need to change the order? So by doing this, you're going to improve the overall customer experience by getting them through the IVR, getting their questions resolved, and then working further upstream in other channels to improve the expectations so that call does not have to be made. Email platforms have gone next level as well. So if you've worked with one of the many email service providers or ESPs, you can gain a lot of intelligence from these messages that are going out and seeing what's being opened, number one, what's being clicked on in the messages. So you can identify a customer's engagement level and then use that as a predictor of churn. If a customer is less engaged, maybe they're more likely to churn, and you can do your own studies of that and then propose different offers. If someone's not opening the messages, maybe you want to offer them something to stick around, or such as free channels. We see that with the cable companies, discounted rates. We see that with a lot of the phone companies, with the cellular services, and many other uses. Correlation studies. So what are the main variables in KPIs that are tied to your success outcome? Is it customer retention? Is it customer lifetime value? Is it new customers coming on board, higher spend? So all of these can be tied back to certain variables, such as how often are they purchasing? Are they purchasing on a sale time? Are they calling very frequently? Are they dropping soon after a bad interaction? Maybe you need to give them gift cards after they do that. Maybe, and determine the amount. Is this customer valued? Because if that's the trigger and that's highly correlated to retention, then you should be able to justify some kind of spend. Workforce management is another tool. In fact, we're launching our workforce management tool this week. No more spreadsheets are needed. So we're able to effectively staff customer service agents based on skills. And we know now, based on prior patterns, how often customers are calling. What day of the week are they most likely going to be calling? Certain times of day. The day after the Super Bowl, maybe that's the greatest call out day of the year. So how do we effectively overstaff or staff to meet our service level obligations throughout the day and week? A/B testing has been around for decades as well, most commonly used by sales groups and marketing to test different offers. So if I were offered $5 off a coupon in the mail and I used it, someone else was offered a $10 off coupon and they used it. Well, they just wasted $5 by offering too much of a coupon to customer B. So maybe customer A and that profile can be used for future offers and maximize their profitability. We can do the same thing with customer service as we're testing out new chat scripts or sending some customers to a chat bot instead of a chat. Also scripts for customer care agents and changes to the IVR. So you can test these before rolling these out in more wide-scale fashion. So I wanted to share with you some of my CX analytic best practices. Number one, as I said before, and I think most all of you would agree, there's too many KPIs that we could be held to be accountable for, but which are the key ones that really we should be measured upon because measurement increases action. So select a couple, gear your strategies around those, and then report on those quite frequently. And these targets need to be set as realistic or pragmatic, and then aspirational, right? What's our long-term goal? What company do you want to look like? And what do their metrics look like? And then how can you derive the right tools to provide insight on whether you're hitting those targets and you're on the right path? Once you have these set, communicate regularly. Those in the CX industry cannot be seen as a scoreboard operator, if you will. We need to be shown as driving that action, pointing to where the fires are and helping to put them out, and then sharing these on a regular basis on a widespread group distribution as much as you can. Also, I can't hype this enough. Metrics are just a starting point. A company's NPS is just a combination of everything combined to deliver that customer experience. So until you apply filters, it's just merely a number. It's like saying it's 75 degrees without mentioning, oh, and it's raining and there's a hurricane coming and a cold front. So we need to understand everything about that. So is the metric higher with new joiners? Maybe you've over discounted a new customer, but NPS is lower on customers who've been with you for over a year because maybe a discount has expired and they're at full rack rate now and churning. Continue to assess emerging technologies. Webinars such as this, by and large, are free. Take part in as many as you can. Listen to people who've been in the industry, and also take part in vendor presentations, right? Demos are free. Now, eventually you have to break up, tell them that you're not interested, but they're willing to educate you on emerging technologies and ways that they can help you, and then that'll build your knowledge base so that then when a situation arises that maybe you do have money or you can build an ROI story, the vendors will help you with that, then you're prepared. You already know who's in this space, what tools can be leveraged to help you achieve your desired outcomes. Dashboards are great, but we end up with a couple people who are really good at creating these, and then everybody wants to leverage those talents and cut and paste those graphics into their PowerPoint for every quarterly business review. Instead, use these tools to create dashboards that others can apply filters, create their own views for each one of their clients or customers, for each one of their time periods that they're interested. Let them apply filters so that then they can create the views that they want on an ongoing basis. Also, assess each one of these touch points across the holistic journey. Some major companies have an IVR unit, a website group, chatbot, retail, and yes, they talk to each other, but they need to be really aligned because the customer doesn't see us as individual units. They see this as an omni-channel experience. And when they walk into a store, they expect to know that you've already called into the call center and not had your issue resolved. So companies need to adopt the same view as the customer. Lastly, conduct this post-project return on investment. Finance can be your best friends in a company. Once you've gotten your VOC or EFM, your workforce management project approved, and you've got a certain ROI tied to it, circle back in a few months if they don't come to you and prove out that overall return on investment was actually realized, because a lot of times these are SaaS programs. It requires recurring investment, and you need the company to continue to support your initiatives. And also this will pave the way for getting investment for other future initiatives that you bring before them, because there is a positive ROI for a lot of these CX tools that are coming out. I want to thank Futurista for asking me to sit in and share my thoughts. I'm going to be on for the Q&A live in a few minutes. And if you'd like to reach out to me directly, my contact information is on.
Well, thanks very much to Brian. That was a pre-recorded session that you kindly did for us. So there won't be a Q&A. However, if you do have any questions for Brian, please put them in the chat box and our team will send them on. So welcome everybody. I'm Kirsty and this is the Future of Customer Experience 3.0. In just a second, we shall have our next speaker, Shannyn de Arman, from our sponsor First Orion. Customer trust, brand your calls and build your trust back in your connections. So if Shannyn can unmute yourself, that would be great. We've got some brilliant speakers during the rest of the session. Please get on the socials. It's hashtag CX 3.0. That's hashtag CX 3.0. And how about we see some of your selfies? Show us where you're working from today. It might be from home, or you might even be back in the office. And also feel free to share your LinkedIn details as well. We'd appreciate that. So let me just check. Oh, wonderful. There we go. Yeah, so if Shannyn is available, that would be great. And Shannyn is the Enterprise Account Executive with First Orion, and she'll be talking about customer trust, brand your calls, and trust back in your connections. After that, it will be Alex. Alex is head of customer experience research at Zappos, giving customers a voice in a world of numbers. We'll then have a short break, and John Layton will be here, head of customer service at EasyJet, how data-driven customer engagement delivers value to each customer. And after that will be Fanny Korosala from Walmart, and customer experience technologists, your role to drive the success of digital business. So a full day of sessions. And then, of course, we'll have a panel discussion with Shannyn coming up a little bit later on, Shannyn and Alex. And we've got some brilliant events coming up as well. All you need to do is head online, groupfuturista.com. That's groupfuturista.com to book the next few events. And of course, once you listen to Shannyn's presentation, please do input some questions in the Q&A box. So if you've got any questions, we'll be doing a live Q&A after Shannyn's sessions. And it's a real chance for you to pick the brains of the experts. I must admit, we've got a whole wealth of knowledge here today talking about the ultimate digital customer experience. And it's really a great opportunity for us to really get to know them, get to know our speakers, and find out the questions and ask about some of the knowledge. So if I can pass you over to Shannyn, that would be great.
Well, first of all, thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. And I'm so sorry that we had these technical difficulties, but it seems like we're up and running now. So I'm Shannyn D. Arman. I am with First Orion, and I'm going to chat with you a little bit about our branded calling solution and why it should be part of every brand's story. So next slide. As we just spoke about, if you have a mobile phone, you have likely experience some type of fraudulent call. And most people, if an unknown number pops up at this point, they are very unlikely to answer it because it is scary. Is this going to be a fraudulent call? Is it going to be a scam? Is this going to be somebody trying to sell something that I do not want, or just someone I do not want to talk to right at that moment? And this creates a problem for brands and for the service industry, because if you need to speak with a consumer about a purchase that they've made or about a financial transaction, et cetera, and you cannot identify yourself to that customer when you call, they may not pick up the phone and they could be missing important calls. Next slide, please. I have to remember to say that. In our last customer survey that we just completed, as you can see, 2/3 of people say they are blocking or ignoring unknown calls at this point. And many people are missing important calls that they normally would have picked up had they known that that brand, that service, or that delivery was trying to reach them. Those are calls that they actually wanted. And this is going to create an even bigger problem with the holidays coming up and people ordering more and more packages because of the deliveries and all of the things that go into kicking off a holiday. Next slide. So fraudulent calling is not going away, and here's why. It's big business. People are making a lot of money off of scams and fraud. $30 billion was lost to Americans alone. This is not global, just Americans lost $30 billion to phone scams in just the past year. That's not going to go away. Where there's an opportunity, people are going to take advantage of that. And as you can see, if you took that money that the scammers made in the last year, it ranked among the Fortune 500, number 101. So that is big business. And so if the fraudulent calls, if the spam calls, if all of this is not going away, if it's here to stay, then what's the solution? What can a brand do? Next slide, please. We have a solution. Make a clear connection. The brand has the ability to take the power back and to identify their outgoing calls so the consumer can see the call clear as day on the call screen and choose whether or not they answer that call, if it's a good time for them, etc. What's further is that we enable the brand to actually show up in a customer's call log. So I don't know if you've ever gotten a call and thought, oh, I think that's them, but I'm not super sure. Or seen the call and then go back into the call log to call that person back at a better time. And it's just a group of numbers, unknown numbers that are not identified. We make sure that the business name has a spot in that call log. Therefore, it's making an impression and they're able to easily reconnect with the brand and call them back when the time is more convenient for them. Next slide, please. And this is here an example of our Engage product. As you can see, not only can you identify the call with the name and also the location of the call, but you can also show a logo. And that's good branding, showing the logo, letting people know this is legitimate and I'm actually calling you for a reason. In addition, if you can see under Good Bank, it says customer service call. That can also be a call from a pharmacy, your prescription's ready. It could be a call from a delivery. And underneath, someone could say, hey, your food's outside. There are a lot of options with this, and it gives brands and services the power to choose the type of impression they make to each consumer based on the reason for the call. Next slide, please. So this talks a little bit about the feeling that a phone call gives to a consumer. If you are called and the brand has identified itself and made sure to let them know, they've gone to the trouble to let the consumer know, hey, this is us, we're calling, we want to make sure that you know it's us. The brand feels more premium. They feel like they care. The unidentified call, on the other hand, people don't think it's legitimate and they don't view it as a good value brand or a premium brand. And so it also goes back to, do you care about a customer's experience? Does a brand really take the time to make sure that they are taking care of the customer with every interaction? Next slide. And speaking of every interaction, right here is all the digital and physical touch points that a consumer can potentially touch on within their journey. These are a lot of touch points. Most consumers don't touch all of these, but there's some opportunity for phone calls within this journey. And just like you can make an impression on a banner in a mobile phone, or on a billboard, or in Times Square, or on a TV spot, you can make an impression with a branded call and within that call log. And it should be viewed as that for the brand, to kind of present yourself as a premium service, a premium brand, someone that a consumer wants to do business with and wants to be a part of. And beyond that, we've seen that not only do consumers prefer a phone call when it comes to important business, but they're craving human connection right now, and letting them know that there's a face and a person beyond the screen, beyond that piece of paper, really does drive engagement and it drives a good feeling about the brand. And it's something I think that brands and people we purchase products from and services from should definitely strive for. It creates a good experience, and it creates a feeling of goodwill and human connection, especially in these times. And the last slide, so next slide. This is kind of the experience and the improvement. This talks a little bit about some metrics that we've seen throughout all the time that we've been branding calls. So you're going to see a decrease in call declines. You're going to see an increase in answer rates. But not only that, we provide analytics to help brands measure what is happening beyond that. Are they talking for longer? Is there some type of conversion happening? What's the reach? How many calls does it actually take a consumer before they pick up the phone? So these are a lot of indicators as to when is a great time to call. What is a good thing to be calling consumers about? And all these analytics are provided. And it also talks a little bit about how we actually make it happen. And the good news here is that there's no integration to get started for anyone to start identifying their calls to the people that they're trying to reach out to. So it's fairly easy to get started in branding your phone call, identifying who you are. And from there, things can only get better, and only more trust can be built with your audience and the consumers that you're interacting with. And that is it. I want to thank you guys. I cut it a little bit short because I knew that I started a little bit late, but I want to thank you guys for listening. And I think there's already a couple of questions.
There certainly is. Thank you so much, Shannyn. Really appreciate that. Thank you. So is there a relationship between marketing knowledge management and customer loyalty? And where does this relationship lie?
Between customer loyalty and customer management? I think that it's all of the above. So we want to not only help brands manage what they're doing and how they are connecting with customers, but we want to help them create a great impression so that they are able to connect with these customers on a deeper level and get them excited about answering the phone, and also give them the opportunity to say, hey, I don't need a phone call about that. You can just send me a message. I mean, all of these things are learning, and all of these things we will help the brands work through as they learn more about their customer base and as they learn more about who it is that they're trying to connect with.
Wonderful, thank you. Does satisfaction fully or partially mediate the relationship between service quality and behavioural intentions? That's come in the Q&A box.
Between behavior intentions, well, I think that in general, if we are trying to reach a client or a consumer and we're looking at behaviors, we are going to apply data and analytics to those behaviors and see what makes sense. So all of this can be tracked back to, are they answering the phone? Are they not answering the phone? What time of day is that? What is the reason? What type of business is this? And what is the reason they're calling for? There's a lot of reasons a company can call somebody. There are some wonderful reasons and there's some not wonderful reasons. And so we can take all of that and look at the reasoning behind it and find the best time and place to make that phone call and give the consumer that impression.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'm just having a quick look in the chat box. Is there anything that you wanted to answer here? Let's have a look. I think from Tony, do you foresee spammers adopting similar approaches to make their calls more legit?
So this was one of the first things we learned they are constantly, every single day, learning more about how we are preventing them from spoofing numbers and making their calls seem legit. They're learning more, and we're trying to stay one step ahead of them. And they get smarter and smarter. And our job is to stay ahead of them and prevent them from being successful. We block currently over 100 million bad actors a day. There are a lot of calls that should not be going through that we are currently blocking. And yes, some do get through. And those ones that do get through, we are doing our best to stay ahead of those and learn and try to stay one step ahead. Okay, they're doing this today. What are they going to be doing next week to try to get around all of our barriers that we've set up? So we have a full data team that this is all they do.
Yes, and Tony says sounds like a constant battle. All the best for staying ahead, smiley face.
Yeah, it is a constant battle. It's a game of whack-a-mole is what they say. I mean, we are constantly trying to figure out better ways to keep the brands safe and keep consumers safe and make sure that the person who says they are calling as Nestle, for instance, is Nestle. The person that is calling for Nordstrom is Nordstrom. Those are not clients. That is just an example. But we try to make sure that those brands are protected. And then let's see, I think there was one other question, the robo-text. So yeah. I'm so glad you brought up text messaging. It's on the docket. We don't have it yet, but I'm sure you all have seen spam text recently. I get notifications, I would say every couple hours, incoming spam text blocked. So it is becoming a problem, and that is another way they are trying to get around all of the barriers that have been set forth. And so we are currently working on a solution, and we hope that branded text will be, available sometime in the future. That would be a great addition to our arsenal of products.
And just quickly before you go, David says, my mum is getting a boatload of inquiries on her cell, which is irritating. What can she do as a consumer?
Unfortunately, it has a lot to do with the carrier that you currently use. It has a lot to do with who you're blocking, and if you are reporting those calls. And I would definitely say, if you are not, continue to report those calls, continue to block them. There are certain services that you can use that do get smarter and learn more. But I've told my parents, if you get a call that you don't know, don't answer it. Let them leave a message. Make sure your inbox is open, let them leave a message. And if it sounds like something that is real and you need to get back to, call them back. And if they need to get a hold of you and it is important, then that should be fairly easy to do, to call them back to speak to somebody about the issue. But yeah, my advice to my parents has been, do not answer unknown numbers because they can seem real and they can have real reasons for calling that aren't legitimate, unfortunately.
Yeah. She's 90. She does not have the time. She is using the no answer call method. Well, that is good. I know with James's nan, who is 95, my partner's nan, she's got a call screening. So you leave your name, and then it gives you the option to answer. But that was brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Shannyn. Thoroughly enjoyed that presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for being our sponsor as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you as well.
Thank you. See you soon. Speak soon. Well, I'll see you later on the panel discussion.
Sounds great.
Brilliant, thank you. So up next, we've got Alex. So if Alex would like to unmute, Head of Customer Experience Research at Zappos. And Alex is going to be talking about giving customers a voice in a world of numbers. Giving customers a voice in a world of numbers. So if Alex can come on, and I can see you there. Hi, Alex, you okay?
Hi, Christy. Yes, shall I start sharing my screen?
Yeah, that would be great. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Nice beard.
Oh, thank you.
It's nice and tidy. Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad you approve. Hold on, let me.
So this is the future of digital customer experience 3.0 for people just joining us. You can look at all the other events with Group Futurista, groupfuturista.com. Plenty of events going on. Just make sure you register yourself and get yourself a ticket. Well, shall I pass it over to you, Alex? You ready?
Great, Christy, sure. Can you guys see my screen, just the slides, not the notes?
Yeah, we can just see, and loud and clear as well. Sounds great.
Thank you so much, Christy. Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you this, well, it's morning in sunny Las Vegas here. And I wanted to share some thoughts with you today on customer centricity and customer loyalty, and why it's even more important now than ever to talk about these important topics. I don't have to tell this audience that we live in very uncertain times. Technology changes very rapidly, and business models evolve almost overnight. And to top it off, we are just emerging from a global COVID pandemic that has changed how people interact with each other and with businesses almost on a daily basis. As soon as we feel like things are getting better, we get hit by another news about this pandemic, and it really affects our lives, and it really affects how a business is conducted. Some of the most hotly debated topics in business circles are about whether the pandemic has changed customer needs, behaviors, and attitudes for good, or there will be a return to a pre-pandemic normal. And that matters because during the pandemic, whole industries were decimated, and the world really was hurled into economic mayhem. We also live in really a fast-paced, consumption-driven society nowadays. And as consumers, we have so many choices. In addition to that, the explosion of social media has allowed us to put all our best lives for all to see. Facebook, now Meta, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and the like are crowded with beautiful people living their best lives, and the rest of us are just trying to keep up with the Joneses. And this time of uncertainty and consumer choice is also dominated by another trend, which is the rise of big data, data science, machine learning, algorithms, and such. Now, according to McKinsey, the amount of data in our world has been exploding, and analyzing large data sets, the so-called big data, will become a key basis of competition, underpinning new waves of productivity, growth, innovation, and consumer surplus. So these are all good things, undoubtedly. On the other hand, many businesses strive to create lasting customer loyalty and increase lifetime customer value by creating products and services which are really personalized, tailored, and which create an emotional connection with customers. In their Harvard Business Review article, an emotional connection matters more than customer satisfaction. Alan Zorfas and Daniel Lehman point out that the most effective way to maximize customer value is to really tap into customers' fundamental motivations and to fulfill their deep, often unspoken, often subconscious emotional needs. That means appealing to any of dozens of emotional motivators, such as the desire to feel a sense of belonging, to succeed in life, to feel secure, and so on. And you may recognize some of those Maslow hierarchy of needs here. In this talk, I will try to convince you that these two trends, the reliance on big data and statistical averages on the one hand, and the quest for cultivating lasting customer loyalty on the other, are really in opposition to one another and create inherent tension. And this tension needs to be resolved by any business which wants to win the hearts and minds of the customers of today and tomorrow. In other words, businesses cannot create products and services that result in remarkable customer experiences and cannot hope to meaningfully create customer loyalty until they understand and treat their customers as people instead of just numbers. And that is really because customers are not numbers. I mean, you cannot average them. I missed to introduce myself on a personal level. So live in Las Vegas, married. We have 2.4 beautiful children. Little Nicholas is 0.4, but I keep telling him, you're going to grow up to be a 1.0 human being. And usually when I do this in person, there's chuckles in the audience and so on. And then I also tell a story of a statistician who had his head in a hot oven and feet in a block of ice, but on the average, they felt just fine. And that also kind of produces some laughter in the audience. I can do a whole hour of stand-up comedy on this, but it's really no laughing matter. It really, this points to the fact that this focus on numbers sometimes makes businesses forget that their customers are real people. And if you only focus on the numbers, you think of businesses as spreadsheets. In fact, it's about relationships. That's something that I learned while working at Zappos, especially. And in any relationship, trust is really critical. Shannyn talked about the importance of trust and what bad actors in business do to really undermine consumer trust. So trust is a really critical component of business nowadays, of life nowadays. Especially it bubbled to the top in the pandemic, during the pandemic and so on. And unfortunately, some people in businesses realize this only after something bad happens, and then it's too late. We have to start building and maintaining trust before that really happens. So let me talk to you a little bit about how we operationally define trust at Zappos. You can define trust in many different ways. It is a psychological concept. It's not a real thing that we don't have a thermometer for trust, really. So you need to really carefully define it, explain how you define it, and then measure it in the same way consistently. So at Zappos, we use a measure that was developed by Fred Reichheld, the creator of the Net Promoter Score. And it's a statement saying retailers always have my best interest as a customer in mind. Or you can say Zappos always has my best interest as a customer in mind. And it's from 0 to 10, completely disagree to completely agree. And so this it's a very simple but very powerful way of very high bar to say, okay, this business always has my best interest as a customer in mind. We calculate net trust in the same way that the Net Promoter Score is calculated, so it can vary from. So basically, we take the percentage of people who give 9 and 10, the highest marks, and from that we subtract the percentage of people who give 0 to 6, which is the lowest marks. And it can vary from plus 100 to minus 100. We collect data in the US by running a quarterly survey of a very large representative samples of the population of US shoppers. And based on how we conceptualize and measure trust, trust in retail is really not in a good place right now. And over the past 3 years, it's been going in the wrong direction. You can see really some worrisome numbers here. We also collect trust and other relevant metrics data in our Voice of the Customer survey that our customers and visitors to the Zappos websites and mobile apps and so on, they give us feedback on a daily basis. And we analyze a very large data set of customer ratings of trust, ease of use, ease of search, and personalization in this case. We ran this with a sample of over 207,000 customer ratings, so very large data set. It's not big data, but it's a substantial data set. And we ran an analysis called discriminant analysis, and it looks basically at how several variables like trust, etc., are related to an outcome variable. In this case, the outcome variable was whether this person was a promoter or a detractor on the Net Promoter Scale. And you can see here that all the input variables predicted Net Promoter category, the Net Promoter category statistically significantly. So basically, trust is a predictor of net promoter score, ease of use, ease of search, personalization. But what's really interesting here is that trust, out of those 4 variables, trust was the strongest predictor of whether somebody would say, I will recommend this company or this service to a friend or family. Our research also is backed up by research from third party, really well-known names out there like Gallup, Edelman, Statista, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Forrester, and so on. Years ago, there was a survey, and that's reported by Statista, of trustworthiness of professionals in the United States, and it was a ranked list, and at the very bottom of the trust hierarchy were members of Congress in the US, followed by car salesmen, and then third from the bottom were business executives. And that again tells you something about general trust in business. And I cannot overstate the importance of that personal characteristic and social characteristic and psychological characteristic in business and in our lives in general. And there's really a better way to focus on, to do that, to build trust. And this is to focus on customers as people and build that trust and maintain that trust. This is all the time I have for today. But I also, can talk about how we've done this at Zappos. We've built our Voice of the Customer program. And we've really done really amazing things over the years. Zappos is known for its customer service. We're part of Amazon, and as Amazon, we are also customer obsessed. So that's all the time I have for today, and I wanted to thank you for your attention.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Alex. Really appreciate your time. So let's have a quick look at the Q&As. Which are the best CX maturity models that work better in today's time?
I don't know exactly what is meant by a maturity model, but I can talk about several models that I'm aware of. And one is, for example, the product centricity model. And this is what I learned from a really influential professor at the Wharton School, who's the godfather of customer centricity, Peter Fader. So he talks about, for example, product centricity, which is the dominant business model now. It's creating the best product out there and then spreading the word to as many people as you can. Some of the most successful companies out there are product centric. I mean, starting with Henry Ford back in the day, that was the only product you could get like that one. Nowadays we have, Apple. They're product centric. Nobody can match their product, and then people flock to buy all of their products and so on. There's another model which is operational excellence, that you have such great operation, and you achieve lowest prices and great selection and so on. Amazon is, for example, an example. And that nobody can touch you in terms of business, right? But there's another one which is near and dear to my heart, which is customer centricity. And I believe it's going to be more and more important. And this is understand your customers, understand that not all your customers are the same, and then really treat your best customers as well as you can, and then they'll spread the word for you.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll go to another question. What should organizations do to keep their workforce relevant in times of rapid change?
Well, I think it's just like understanding and treating your customers as people. It's the same. It's even more important to treat your employees well. And that was at Zappos, our mantra was number one, treat your employees well, then treat your business partners well, and they will treat your customers well, and everybody's going to be happy, right? This is nirvana right there, the holy grail. But I think it's not rocket science. It's pretty simple. It's treat your employees well and build trust and build loyalty among your workforce. and then that will pay off because those happy employees will create happy customers.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'm just having a quick look in the chat box, actually. There's been something from DC. Alex, this pandemic or freak of nature and all the new technology has no doubt been a wake-up call. Yet if you look back on the many changes the USA and the world has had over the last 2 centuries, these times it's actually some things that we've overcome at all. Let's have a look. From polio to the many shortages of oil, we have adapted and overcome the obstacles. Is it simply the will and the power of those with their nose to the grindstone to be successful?
I think it's a really great point, and that's when I hear statements like the pandemic has changed everything, consumers have changed forever. That is exactly my reaction, because my training is in psychology. I have a degree in experimental social psychology, and as a psychologist, I know that our brains and the way we think and the way we operate have developed over millennia, and they're not going to change over the span of 2-3 years. These changes, the fundamental changes, take tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, right? So for me, the main question is what has changed, right, for good, and what has remained the same. And when you look at the fundamental, I'm a little distracted by your baby there. Great job multitasking, by the way. This is amazing. Oh, so
thank you from home today. She's
awesome.
listening to you. She was tapping my leg.
Speaking of the pandemic and how it changed the way we work, that's fantastic, right? You couldn't have usually the baby in the boardroom when you give a presentation or on stage, right? So that's awesome. So again, yeah, for me, the question is, what has changed for us? And some things have changed, but a lot of things are psychology, or the way we think, our attitudes, I think are the same pretty much, and will be the same for a long time.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much. That was really great, Alex. Great to have you on today. And you'll be joining us a bit later on for the panel discussion.
I'll be here, yes.
Lovely. Thank you, Alex. Really appreciate you today. Thank you. So I think it is time for a break. Thank you very much. So please feel free, head to the bathroom, grab yourself a drink or a snack, or check your emails and your messages, and then we will come back with John Layton from EasyJet, and he'll be talking about how data-driven customer engagement delivers value to each customer. Thank you very much, and we'll see you shortly.
Reaching your customers over the phone can be a chore. That's usually because they just don't answer. 87% of people don't answer calls from unknown numbers. If they don't know it's you, they aren't picking up. That can mean added costs and even lost revenue. The good news is you can solve this problem with Inform branded caller ID from First Orion. With Inform, your customers don't see a random phone number they don't recognize. Instead, they see your 32-character business name, both in their call ID field and in their call log. With Inform, your customers are more likely to answer the first time. In fact, one national retailer who signed up for Inform doubled their answer rate. That drives your conversion rates and revenue and helps you deliver a better customer experience. Each year, consumers receive more than 100 billion scam calls. It's no wonder they aren't picking up unknown numbers. But when they see your name in their caller ID, they know it's you. It's time you finally got some answers. Visit firstorion.com/inform to learn more and get started. Texting.
Hey, how have you been?
Good. Browsing.
Every week he changes, so I'm
Social. Our phone is how we stay connected with the world and with each other. But the phone call, that's a big problem.
Billions upon billions of scam calls have made it almost impossible to connect with the call. That's why First Orion takes on scammers and bad actors with call protection, identifying and stopping scam calls, and protecting callers and their networks. And yet, we still aren't answering. All those scammers destroyed our trust in the phone call. If we don't know who it is, we don't answer. We don't connect. Branded phone calls from First Orion changes that. With branded calling, your business name, your logo, your reason for the call, it's all there, building back that trust. Also, you can finally hear that one word you've been waiting for.
Hello?
Finally, real human connection is back with a phone call.
Thank you so much for calling.
That's who we are. That's First Orion.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another great webinar with Group Futurista. My name is Kirsty. For those joining us, I'm a mum of this little one, Skylar, who is 17 weeks. And so semi-maternity leave. I'm a DJ and event host. And it's been pretty busy. It's going to be pretty busy for the next few weeks as well. But thanks so much to everybody attending today. Thank you to all of the attendees and the participants. Thank you to our media partners and of course our sponsor, First Orion. It's just madness what we've learned today. So thank you to all of our speakers so far. In just a second, we'll be hearing from John Latham, and it's a pre-recorded session today. John was unfortunately couldn't make it, but John, we really wanted to hear from John. He's from EasyJet, and he is the head of customer service. So you can imagine what a role that is there. And he'll be talking about how data-driven customer engagement delivers value to each customer. So the team will be loading that up for you. And after that, we'll have Fani Karazala, and they're from Walmart. And the seminar today is Customer Experience Technologists, your role to drive the success of digital business. So that'll be happening. And then we'll have a panel discussion, and we'll be talking about the future of customer experience in 2021 and beyond, trends that we just can't afford to miss. And we'll be welcoming back Shannyn from First Orion, and of course Alex from Zappos. So we've got a really interesting panel discussion today. So I've got some questions, but feel free to drop me your own as well in the Q&A box, because we're here to learn, we're here to inspire, we're here to gain knowledge from one another. And it's brilliant when we've got the experts here in person, two brilliant experts today that we can ask the questions. And as I said before, it's about collaborating and connecting. So feel free to drop in your LinkedIn details in the chat box if you would like to collaborate and connect today. Pop those in. I had some great connections made yesterday. So yeah, so that'll be great. And then of course some other events coming up with Group Futurista. I've got some really good events coming up. All you need to do is log on to groupfuturista.com.
And just referring to what you were just mentioning there, that it has been quite a hectic year with us, and I think the aviation industry in general, it's basically turned us on our head, and it's processes that we've needed over the last year were non-existent 14 months ago. Customer demand and customer sentiment and advocacy has completely changed in this industry. Now, I wouldn't say that within aviation itself that is something that doesn't always happen. I've worked in telco and retail, and just going back to Fani and Martin's kind of examples in the previous presentations, when you move into aviation, it's is pretty much the most emotional kind of customer experience that you can imagine. And my 5 years with EasyJet itself has seen, I think the first 6 months I sat in my desk, and every day was incredibly different. So when it comes to customer experience, and this is what I'm going to talk to you guys about today, customer experience has to be handled in a slightly different way, because ultimately we are incredibly transactional, and our customer journey isn't the same as a subscription-based model, whether that be telco or a kind of a television subscription or anything like that. Even though we have regular flyers, I would say on average, most airlines is the average propensity to fly for the customers that we do fly is around a year to 18 months. So to be able to retain that loyalty in a very price sensitive market is very, very difficult. And something I've been working on over the last kind of 5 years has been around how we start to kind of use that best practice from those more subscription-based models to actually use the data that we do know about the customers to try and enhance the customer experience and trying to kind of bring that loyalty in, but also make sure that when we do get someone to fly with us, that we make sure that that experience is exactly what the brand kind of expects to be. So as Richard just mentioned, I look after customer services and experience, so the service experience journey as well. My operation runs across 7 different languages. We've got sites with our partners and in-house across the world. Our main hub is in Cape Town, which has seen its own kind of challenges over the last year, but they're just an amazing performance, an amazing site. And we have about 2,500 FT now. If I look at some of the speakers today, it's probably a little bit smaller than those guys have got. But for an airline, we have to be incredibly flexible, and we do have a lot of legacy systems, because when you look at the system itself that we use for reservations, and again, most airlines are like this, it's very challenging to actually swap out because you've got kind of ongoing bookings going through. So our agents our frontline agents are very, very important to us. We have to invest so much more time in inducting and keeping them fresh. So that's the reason why that value is there, and it works very well. Current setup, I split my customer journey between 3 different journey points. So pre-flight, which is everything from acquisition, so where the ticket is bought, right the way through to having to change, or maybe some, as you probably would have seen yourselves over the last year, some changes to your flight a lot before your flight was going to happen. And I would say at the moment, our contact rates are around kind of 30% on there. Another 30% is on the day, where bad things can happen on the day, and this is where things get really emotional within aviation. This is where someone has travelled to the airport, and their flight has been cancelled, the flight has been delayed, or you could have certain things going wrong within that journey itself. And there we have to have what you find is the conversations are longer, and it's a lot harder to resolve because they're actually in the environment themselves. Then you've got your post-flight. Now in Europe, this actually makes up about 40% of my contacts, or actually did, and we're reducing now. We have a huge compensation legislation in place called EU 261, which means that any flight that is delayed on where it's agreed that is EasyJet's kind of issue, where we've delayed that flight over 3 hours, you have to pay between £250 and £400 compensation. Now, obviously, customers have got to know this, and it's how we manage this and make that journey as easy as possible for them. Within that, we have 2 key systems. We have our reservation system and our CRM. And then underpinning that, and the reason I'm telling you this is just how the journey kind of is exposed. Training, normal training, quality and planning governance. Then our vendor management performance team, and our continuous improvement team, which is critical to what I'm trying to do with transition. This is where we bring in new technology. This is where all of our new platforms coming and how our integration works. The continuous improvement also, which has been very important over the last year, has been about redefining process. Where we're a non-refundable airline, a year ago we didn't perform refunds. Now we have to you know, you're talking 9 billion in the last kind of 6 months, and there's a lot of new process and a lot of focus on the operation, which ultimately we need to get right so that people want to travel with us as government rules and traffic light systems or whatever is in place and biosecurity starts opening up. We need to make sure that that operation is running there and people can have faith and have a lot of, and we receive a lot of brand advocacy. So our vision is very simple as this. We have our best digital platforms. We've got an award-winning app, and that works very, very well. We get a lot of kind of a lot of kudos back through the app itself. However, there's still not that linkage that sits between it. There's still not a lot of data that actually feeds into that app at the moment to make sure that we can personalize more and more. Obviously, our frontline people are really, really important. And again, our cabin crew are, I would like to say, one of the best in the world, and they really do things, I would say, differently. And then it falls into kind of with the app, we then look at this no nonsense disruption. Again, those of you that fly, which I'm sure is a lot of you, you know that is incredibly painful, and really trying to take the pain out of disruption management. And then for me, it's effortless resolution. So this is where, if you need to contact me, I make sure that the information that I get from that very old legacy system, from the CRM, and all of that is combined to enable me to be able to resolve you, whether you come through a automated channel like a chatbot or an IVR, or through to an agent, an assisted agent, 75% of the time. And I think in aviation, that's quite a high target. Okay, and making sure everyone's thinking customer and the usage of our data, whether that be for value-based purposes or for resolution-based purposes, is appropriate and leads to us being able to either take cost out or increase revenue. So if I take with Fanny, who spoke before, I think his model is probably better explaining this, but this is much more of an operational lower level, I would suggest. What I've brought in over the last couple of years is I've brought essentially what I have is a singular chatbot that sits on the top that feeds my omni-channel approach is very much between the IVR and the chatbot. Both get fed exactly the same data, and it is able to answer exactly the same questions, whether you're adding a bag, adding a seat, or having to manage disruption. That we try to resolve within that platform at the moment about 50%. As if it cannot be resolved in that platform, we then pass over to an assistance agent, whether that be in one of the languages, let's say in Cape Town, within the agent there. So what I think is key with what we do, we make then sure that our agents can almost predict what that customer is needing to do. So they would have obviously the transcript from the previous conversation, but they would also have a next best action, not necessarily a revenue development, cross upsell opportunity, but it could be a next best action to solve a complaint. So we would always be trying to funnel those through, and that has intelligence that sits behind it to make sure that we keep improving those complaint resolution options to the agent. I then have a kind of a value-based segmentation piece in there, which a lot of telcos probably have, and I've tried to kind of incorporate this here. So we have a couple of right the way through. If you're a lower value, a newer customer, you would be fed more automation. But as you become a more kind of experienced customer with EasyJet, we then try and treat it more white glove, more concierge. Okay. So at the moment, where we are at the moment, I've been able to get that platform in. Now, where it is for me is being able to change my booking system to enable me to really predict that customer contact and almost go out there via the app, via the IVR, via the chatbot, and really try and bring those in. And then obviously to incorporate messaging platforms as we go through. Currently at 63%, so we're starting to make some progress. Now, the output from this for me, when I started 5 years ago, customer service or customer management, we're now called, it was at around kind of 49% CSAT with, I would say, most of the other channels kind of been very far ahead from us. What we've been able to do with this platform in place is really turn that on its head by that focus on resolving customers, that effortless resolution. And we're now kind of ahead of that onboard experience. And I think hopefully as we start going to recovery mode from COVID, we're going to retain that, and it's going to really help with both understanding our voice of our customer and being that differentiator in the market where it's absolutely needed to be. This is a part about cost. As I'm starting to kind of move away from standard voice channels into chat and automation, it shows here that there is quite a significant reduction in cost. For me, I'm saving around £2 million a year in my operating cost just by migrating more to assistants and more to chat channel. And I think, again, going back to what the other guys were saying, is making sure that we are scalable for the future, so we don't have to keep doing transformations. This is just an ongoing journey. We don't push a channel onto customers. It's their channel of choice. And we just keep driving loyalty, personalization, and more automation where it suits the customer. And that's pretty much where we are. Okay, and back to you.
Fantastic. That was brilliant. It was brilliant the first time round and even better the second time round. So thank you very much to John Layton of EasyJet. Our next guest in a moment is Fani Korosala from Walmart. So the team will just load up the presentation now. Unfortunately, couldn't be with us today, but a brilliant presentation to come. So thanks again to John Layton, Head of Customer Service at EasyJet, Customer Experience Technologist, your role to drive the success of digital business. I think we're all picking up so much today, and if there are any questions, then the team will forward on to John. So just hang on a second for Fani's presentation. And after that, we shall have the panel discussion. And we want you all to still keep here and join us for that, which is going to be great. The future of customer experience in 2021 and beyond. So talking about the trends that we really don't want to miss. And Shannyn de Arman, who is the Enterprise Account Executive at First Orion, and also Alex Genov, who is the Head of Customer Experience Research at Zappos, and he was from Las Vegas. So a really, really great session today. I hope you've been enjoying it as much as we are. This is going out live on Facebook, and if you would like to watch it again, feel free. So over to the team. This is Fani Korosala. Thank you.
It's great, thank you. And Martin did a great job of providing the overview of what really customer experience means in various industries and providing the general overview. What I'm trying to do over the next few minutes is probably walk you through how does technology play a part, but more importantly, how does technology get integrated into the traditional businesses that we run. And I think I've been lucky to be a part of the transition as Walmart was embracing the technology and ensuring that we are moving into a digital first mindset. Won't delve too much into myself, but definitely will want to share a little bit about the relevance of my role today to this particular webinar. So as Richard mentioned, Fani Korosala here, Senior Director, leading merchandising, technology, product management, and user experience for Walmart International Group of Companies. What my primary focus is really to enable and accelerate the digital transformation of the company in the two directions that we talked about. So one of the phases is really around, hey, what does customers experience mean? How do the real customers actually who are buying products across different channels envision the Walmart experience to be? On the flip side, what's really interesting and what has been a foundational piece of the total puzzle is how do we as an organization strive up to and kind of align to that overall digital strategy, and what does it really mean from a technology perspective to actually deliver the enterprise tools, similar to what Martin's alluded to, is like B2B tools. So how do I build those internal technology platforms that can then become seamless connection between what we do internally as Walmart and how does that portray to the customers in general. So with that said, I want to really start our conversation with what does really digital maturity mean. And the way I think about it is really there are three stages of maturity, right? One, we think digital, meaning, hey, what does my how does my customer become more interactive with me with all the platforms that are available. And then there will be a lot of analysis, a lot of small things that we keep doing that will kick us off on the digital maturity journey. The second phase is what I call is doing digital. So think of automation, think of leveraging various technology solutions to do automation so that you can simplify those value chain equations for both your customers and any users that are on the platform. But what really I believe is the nirvana state is being digital. And that is what really my team and I am focused on as we speak today within Walmart, is really trying to understand how do we connect that end user experience and how do we transform that experience to our internal associates so that they can also start, they're not thinking about digital as one more aspect of their job, but they are being digital in the true fashion. So think of with COVID, as unfortunate as it is, we're all in a virtual situation, but think of how millions and millions of users are trying to be digital, not just from interaction perspective, but how do they run their business perspective. So that really is what truly means being digital, and that is really where we want to go. And that should really emphasize on how you build a technology strategy around being digital. If you keep doing things in the middle way, like doing digital, you will end up with a lot of siloed pieces, and there will be not a holistic strategy that will tie into a future-proof or a more holistic, seamless vision for the end customer to represent. And how do you start about this, right? And it's often when technology comes into play, it's either an afterthought or technology, as Martin mentioned, has very different set of KPIs which really don't align with the overall strategy, right? So we really need to start with what the company vision and strategies and what are the core objectives. So if we start there and then start figuring out, okay, if that is those are my core objectives that I have to deliver, whether those be the financial objectives, business objectives, experience objectives, whatever they are, I think everybody in the organization have to rally around those, and those should always be constant, consistent, and should definitely not change. The objectives might change a little year over year, and as the overall macro trends change, but really the vision and strategy will be very consistent, and we need to build a strategy and a plan in place to adhere to that. And you also should look at your channel strategy and how that experience comes into play, right? So with the current age, channels are multifaceted. For example, I'll give you the traditional retail industry. You have thousands and thousands of stores, and then you also have your websites. For example, in Walmart, you have a plethora of websites because of all the acquisitions and all of that. But how do you start providing that seamless, experience through the channel strategy? Stores can't be just offline channels. E-commerce sites cannot be just online channels. How does that integration come into play? And to do that, you have to provide a unified enterprise technology, and that is what ties your vision to the experience that you want to provide to the customers and the users. And with that said, what I really think the areas of focus in the three pillars that I like to define are what do you look at from a macro trends of society? How are the customers and users reacting in the current day and age? And what is the industry? Where is the industry trying to go overall? The first one, which is really across the macro trends in society, will help you, really make your technology future-proof, right? Some of the trends that we should really be thinking about, especially in the last 12 to 15 months, is the reversal of globalization, right? Yes, we are as global as possible, but there is an emphasis and a regeneration of localization, right? So how do you look at that from that perspective, to be able to start thinking about what should we be doing from a digital business perspective? There is ever increasing business disruption that we have to think about. The technologies that are in place, cryptocurrencies, everything is being disrupted in this day and age. And how do we build a technology practice and a technology, roadmap that can, first of all, sustain the business disruption, and second, catch up, and finally, actually, you have to be at the end of that experience. And finally, it's community driven by empathy, right? So as we are going through a lot of global crises in various areas of the world, people are coming together like never before. So how do we, as industries and as big businesses that are supporting the communities, create that feel and passion for empathy? And then you look at your customers and users, right? The customers are really becoming a lot more savvy in terms of how they spend and where they spend and when they spend their dollar or the money. There is a lot of emphasis and direction and change in moving towards a more virtual in-home entertainment. Whether I always think of the examples is eating in is the new eating out. You can pretty much get every sort of culinary experience from a taste point of view right into your hall. So that's one example that always strikes very, very, very well to me in terms of where the customers are shifting, and they are seeking out a lot of creative and social experiences, right? So some of the things that really shot out is how are students engaging with their teachers and counterparts? How are other people engaging for their Friday hours? What are they doing? So these are the kind of things that really address from a customer standpoint. And from an industry point of view, it's really about prioritizing your operational efficiency and being agile, and building those flexible channels. How do your stores eventually become warehouses from where you can distribute things that customers want? Grocery pickup is a great example that has taken over the world over the last 2 to 3 years, but it has really accelerated in the last, I would say, 6 to 12 months. Yes, as unfortunate as the pandemic is, but it has forced us all to be more resilient. What is the ecosystem that we talk about? And I'm not going to go through a lot of those details, but what I really want to look at is the 4 dimensions to the ecosystem. Customer and user experience, obviously, Martin has touched upon it a great deal about it, but what do we, from a technology point of view, focus on? We need to focus on business process transformation, providing a unified view, and a virtual workspace, right? As much as we would all love to, whiteboard together, and I look at this analogy like 10 years ago, if you were to do a discussion, you would all go into a meeting room, sit, discuss for an hour, do your whiteboarding, go out with objectives. Today, how do we do that in a digital world? Yes, we have Zooms, but every single function in your organization is supposed to be on that virtual workspace. I'll give a live example from Walmart, where Walmart's philosophy is everyday low price, save money so you can live better. Which means that pricing plays a very, very important role. And over the last 18 months, what we have really done is create what we call a pricing room, where 3-4 years ago, every week the cross-functional team would sit and discuss what's the next step or what's the competitive strategy for a particular category. And all of that is done today through technology, where all of the different stakeholders can log into this pricing room workspace and really have that workflow aligned and associated. And you have to tend to think through how your organization is believing and behaving, as much as you want to understand what the customer's experience should be from the outside. Unified and seamless. Customers don't care how they shop, which channel they engage you with. They want to be able to, have the same experience. And to do that, it's very important to have a connected infrastructure. It really doesn't mean that, hey, you should be on cloud, hey, you should be on-prem. I don't personally feel that there's a right or wrong strategy. There is a lot of ways that you can do. You'll have to really dive deep into what does that really connected infrastructure mean for your business in the long term, and also platform as a service architecture. I am a huge believer of as a service, and oftentimes software companies are the ones that come with SaaS products, PaaS products, but really every industry should be thinking internally is like, how do I build a platform where my internal associates have the same access to data and experience, and that will change the mindset of how we think about the future. This all has to be done through agility, right? And that means, different frameworks, principles that you can embrace. Again, don't have to go into the detail because there are many ways that many teams and organizations have been successful, but and standardizing your development processes, being modular, thinking automation first, and having a nimble architecture that can be as dynamic as your business and as dynamic as the needs of your customer is very important. So I've spoken a lot about, hey, all of this, right? So how do we achieve this? And what's really important is to build the right platforms, right? Yes, sometimes we think that, hey, the industry is not moving as fast as it needs to be. The challenge is we all have been, including Walmart to an extent, have been on legacy platforms, right? And more often than not, to be digitally disruptive, you have to have the right foundation with the right platform. So investing in the right platforms, thinking through what is your 3 to 5 year vision for your enterprise platform is very important. Whether you go through a build versus buy strategy, following an enterprise model or a microservices architecture, it's totally up to the industry and the business that you're in, but it's important to answer that question. Build the right organization. I cannot emphasize more on this. This is very critical, along with change management, is to how do you set up that organization to work with. I mean, you can have the greatest strategy, but your organization, if your organization and your org structure is not aligned to what you really want to deliver, it's going to be very hard. For example, again, I don't mind saying this example from Walmart is 3 to 4 years ago, Walmart was a very project and program driven company, right? And for various reasons, it has worked really well for Walmart. Obviously, we are the Fortune 1 company, so it makes sense. But as we looked at what is the technology disruption that we need to be on, we understood that we have to move from, really program-driven structure to a product-driven structure. And that all has to be done with change management, and change management should be grassroots driven, right? It's very easy for the top leadership to set the direction. It's as important to get your top leadership buy-in, but it's equally important that your core team, your working group, your workhorses are all bought into the change management, and it's very easy, especially on the technology side of things, to really forget about it. Encourage innovation and iteration, and honestly, that's something we all say that, hey, we have to encourage innovation and iterations, but we can't take failures, right? So we have to all accept that there is going to be a lot of failures. But with those failures, how quickly can you learn and adapt and iterate is what is going to drive the success of your digital business. And finally, modernize your tech stack, right? So you cannot sit on your legacy platforms. You cannot sit on these large mammoth enterprise architectures that cannot be nimble enough. And then you want to say, hey, I want to do this. So what you will end up happening is with a lot of band-aid duct tape type of solutions, and eventually that will break down, right? You're not going to look at your total entirety of your customer lifecycle journey to be able to do that. So that's a little bit about, really what I think from a technology strategy point of view, the pillars or the key areas that team should focus
Well, that was brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed that. That was Fani Casarola from Walmart. So thank you very much for that presentation. Enjoyed that the second time round as much as the first. Speaking about customer experience technologists, your role to drive the success of digital business. Well, thank you so much to everybody. It's the Future of Digital Customer Experience 3.0 webinar with Group Futurista. And if we could welcome back Alex, please. Alex and Shannyn. Shannyn de Arman, who is the Enterprise Account Executive at First Orion, and Alex Janov, Head of Customer Research at Zappos. And we'll have a panel discussion. We certainly will, Skylar. We certainly will. So if we can welcome them back, that would be great. And yeah, you can watch this back. It's being recorded and it's going out live on Facebook, but you can watch it back again. And plenty of other events coming up as well with groupfuturista.com. And if you have got any questions, by the way, for our panelists, then please let us know. You can put them in the Q&A box and we can perhaps ask them in a few moments. Lovely. Hi, Alex. Great to see you. And Shannyn, hello. Thanks again, guys. Thank you so much and welcome today. So we'll get on with the first question. The first one is, what are the emerging trends and challenges in customer experience? Shannyn, I'll come to you first.
I was going to defer to Alex. Zappos, they started this. They were one of the first online retailers to do a great job with customer experience. And it's changed. There's more retailers now that are online and people want things fast. And if I can't be the only one that's noticed, but there's a huge supply chain issue right now, and things are taking a lot longer to get places. And there's a lot of challenges when moving goods around the world. I think from my perspective as a consumer, just knowing when things are going to get to my home or my office are really important. And I think that that's going to be a challenge. And I think businesses are going to have a really hard time updating people, as the supply chain gets more jammed and we try to figure all of this out. But one thing I think that, has helped has been the email of deliveries and tracking numbers and being able to track things that way. So I think that is one of the customer experiences that can be improved fairly simply, is just to maintain that open level of conversation and allow the consumer to get in contact if something goes wrong.
Wonderful. Thank you. Over to you, Alex.
Yeah, thank you, Shannyn, for mentioning Zappos. I mean, it's, again, I cannot take credit for what Zappos have done. I joined them about 7 years ago. They've been around for 22 years now. And I think what made Zappos was the realization that customer service was going to be the differentiator early on. And customer experience is so broad that we need to focus on something. And I think a lot of companies nowadays focus on technology and they forget about customer service. And in all of our research at Zappos, we've found out that customers actually think about customer service holistically. It's not just calling on the phone or when something's wrong, but as Shannyn pointed out, understanding when things are going to get to them, if something doesn't work out, how they can return it. That all is customer service. And I think if companies understand that, I think they have a lot of opportunity to improve customer experience. And just keeping informed is, as Shannyn pointed out, is very important. And Shannyn, the technology that you guys are using is really key in that, right? In terms of with all the, all the dishonest things going on, right? And you're kind of fighting that good fight. I think it's super important. In that vein, trust is so paramount nowadays. And I think if companies are transparent and honest with customers, it's going to go a long way, because yes, the pandemic upended everything and the supply chain is all screwed up, but A lot of companies now just use the excuse, I think, nowadays of, oh, it's because of they have this message that stays there because of the pandemic, blah, blah, blah. I mean, how long is that gonna go on? For how long? So I think that erodes trust.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. You're so right there. It does seem to be the excuse for a lot of things. The next question really is about the common hypes. What are the most common hypes do you think we see in customer experience?
You know, I started that. Yeah, hypes. I mean, it all depends on how technology is used and how to what end, right? Because I would say that big data and data science is one of those very trendy things, algorithms, right? I mean, if I call it a hype, it's not. It's kind of has a negative connotation. I think if it's done with the customer in mind, it can be a very good thing. But if it's done starting with the technology and doing something just because we can do something, right? It may not be a good thing, and then it can also be misused. It can be, you know, there's dark patterns and dark design patterns and so on, and using technology to spy on people and so on. So it's how it's used. But I would say that's one of those things where we get so enamored with technology that we forget about customers as people.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alex. And over to you, Shannyn. Anything to add?
I agree with him. We have we've added a lot to websites. We've added a lot to the customer experience. I mean, it's very rare that you can go to a website and browse and not be served, you know, 5 or 6 pop-ups on join our newsletter, 10% off if you give us our email address, et cetera. And I mean, it disrupts the process for me. And so I would love for brands to take a step back and say, what are people trying to do right now on this website? What is their intention? Do they want a pop-up right now? Even with a phone call, do they want a phone call right now? I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to get an auto insurance quote. I mean, I'm sure you have, Alex, but here, if I try to get one, all of a sudden I've got 6 phone calls coming in 5 minutes, and it's very overwhelming. So I think it's just being intentional about how we're using the data and the algorithms and all the personalization, and figuring out, is this what your consumer wants? Maybe give them an option. Do you want a text? Do you want a phone call? Would you prefer an email? You know, what would make you the most comfortable and meet your need at this time? So yes, I agree. Use the data, use the algorithms, make things easier, but you know, customize it. Make sure that it's what your consumer wants at the time.
I think I couldn't agree more, Shannyn. I think that's exactly, that's the key part. Is businesses are in business to make money. I mean, no question about that. They have to make money because otherwise they wouldn't be in business. But it's this balance of, you know, at least part of it should be in the service of the customer, or, you know, the best interest of the customer in mind, that whole question, right? I mean, back in the day, you know, we had the pesky, door-to-door salesman. You know, they show up at your door unannounced, ring the bell. I mean, I've seen that in movies. I'm not that old, right? But they ring the bell, you know. But nowadays with technology, at your email, your phone, there's thousands of them a day. I mean, imagine if back in the day there were 1,000 salespeople outside your door, like knocking on your door. That's the exact same thing.
You're so right. In the UK, it was for double glazing on windows. Double glazing people used to come at 8 o'clock at night. It's like, what?
Exactly. But now they come in through technology, through your phone, through your email. That's your email is kind of your, you know, online front door, if you will. That's your address, and that's it. Just that has to kind of be reversed to some extent.
Yeah. Another question that we have: how can companies tailor their customer service priorities to fit the firm's strategic focus? Who wants to go first?
I will let you go first, Alex. You're probably going to have a better handle on that question.
So what was the last part there?
The last part was, how can companies tailor their customer service priorities to fit the firm's strategic focus?
I mean, again, strategic focus, part of the strategy is making money, but then if the strategy is customer centricity, for example, then you cannot do that. You cannot tailor things to customers without understanding them. You cannot skip that step. When we talk about personalization, but let's say I don't know you, I just met you. What am I gonna give you as a gift? Like, I don't know what you like, right? So without skipping that step, and then talking about the average person, and I talked about 2.4 children and so on. It's, you cannot average experiences and you cannot average people. So skipping that step, and nowadays we can do it. We can scale understanding customers and having meaningful groupings of people. But when you start treating everybody the same, I mean, it becomes pretty laughable pretty quickly.
I agree with you. Everyone's different and everyone wants to be treated a bit differently. I worked at Nordstrom for many years. I sold handbags long time ago through college, and their customer service, I think, is the best. And they look at it as a ladder approach where the most important people at the company are their employees who are interacting with the customers every single day. And so as you move up in the ladder at Nordstrom, your priority and your importance to the company actually goes down. And so they make sure that they really do a great job of training their employees to, they call it the platinum rule. It's not treat people how you want to be treated, treat people how they want to be treated. And the training was wonderful. And I think that really needs to be a focus again on the individual and how they want communication, how they want to purchase products, review them, potentially return them, etc. And I think that coming back to that and a little bit more of a personal connection will do all of us a lot of good.
Absolutely. And I want to just reiterate that I think Nordstrom has probably one of the best customer service models out there. It's an example to Zappos as well. A lot of people at Zappos started from Nordstrom and so on. So we look up to Nordstrom as well. But this is the key, this personal connection, and that's what Zappos is emulating on the phone. But I think the biggest challenge, going back to the challenges in customer experience, is how can you take that and emulate that on digital experiences? And I think it can be done. There's always a limit to, you cannot replace a human, but technology can go a long way to emulate that and to come closer to that understanding and tailoring and so on. I mean, with all the artificial intelligence out there, I'm thinking, who's working on artificial empathy? That's something that nobody is talking about.
Yeah, too true. Thank you very much. The next question we have, which are the best customer service maturity models that work better in today's time?
Maturity model. I mean, I think I did address that question after my talk. But it's, again, I don't quite know what is meant by a maturity model. But it's, to me, it goes back to really that balance of achieving a business goal and also catering to the customer's goal. And if you strike that balance, then you'll be much more successful than just going for like the one hit, like if you do something that, even people talk about behavioral economics. It's one of those trends, those hot topics out there, but it's basically psychology, consumer psychology. That's what it is. And when you understand that, I think you can manipulate it and you can abuse it too, right? When you understand what triggers people and what makes people tick, you can use it for profit and so on. I think it's if you resist that and then you use it for good, right? Then I think these are going to be the more successful businesses.
Anything to add, Shannyn?
I agree. I think, yeah, I mean, he's correct on all points on the maturity. And I think that I think you have to look at the business and what's meeting their needs, but also how they can serve the customer holistically and make sure that they're making an impression that's not only going to make sure that the customer is happy, but that it's serving, you know, their business and their brand as well. So yes, I completely agree with Alex on that.
The next question we have, what should organizations do to keep their workforce relevant in times of rapid change?
We have to find something that Jen and I disagree on so that it's
yes, yeah.
more interesting. Go ahead.
Workforce relevant. It's really hard. A lot of people like working from home. As a consumer, I don't love it. It's taking longer to get things done. It's taking longer to get my questions answered. If I have to deal with government in any way, somebody's working from their house and I can't get, you know, the hours are off, etc. So as a consumer, it's not my favorite. Even as somebody at work, it's not my favorite. I like to see people in person. I like to go to lunch with people. I like to see people after work. I would love to do this conference in person. So making your workforce relevant, again, it's about the individual. And I think there should be an option. If there are people that want to stay home and they are meeting their goals and getting their work done, great. I think that they should have an option for that. And if you want people like me who want to go into an office and see the people and say hello and grab a cup of coffee and connect, I think that there should be an option for that as well. So keeping the workforce relevant is going to be, it's going to change as everything changes in the world, because I know some people want to get back to work and are kind of tired of the same four walls day in and day out. And I know some people that this has been the best thing that's ever happened to them. So I think the companies are going to have to really dig in and look at who works for them and meet the needs where they are. And then, you know, obviously they're going to have to look at their consumers and the people that they serve and see what's actually going to serve those consumers best as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. Over to you, Alex.
I want to kind of turn this around and say what is going to make the workplace relevant for the workforce, right? Because it's, as Shannyn said, you know, people have different needs. So you have the need to socialize. I mean, the workplace has always been a place for social interactions, somewhere to go that's not home or family, right? To have a different circle. But at the same time, you know, employers have to think about now when people have a choice, they should want to go back to that place and to work. And it doesn't have to be a cubicle. It doesn't have to be an office necessarily. You can meet outside and get your work done. A lot of the creative work is done even when we're all in the office, right? We'll go to offsites to get more creativity going. So this is, I think, again, if it's focused on what needs to be done instead of dictating how it has to be done, then it's going to be better for everybody. I mean, think about how long we've gone. And back in the day, again, going back to kind of the psychology of the workplace, you know, there was, if you have seen images of those, you know, in the old days, these typing pools or these, you know, places where people would sit and, you know, type or do different things. And the way it was intentionally structured was for the supervisor to sit at the front, and everybody's sitting on those long tables facing each other, right? And the supervisor faces everybody. and it just like, again, understanding how people's psychology works. It was so uncomfortable for somebody to turn their head to look at the supervisor. It was very, you know what I mean, versus, so it was designed for, you know, for like control and you know, so-called productivity and so on. I mean, we've gone a long way since then. Now it's kind of another extreme where everybody's working from home, and as any extreme, it's probably not gonna last, or it's not gonna work. But the question is, where is the balance?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I did another webinar a couple of months ago, and there was a poll that gave people the option. It was a big oil company I was working for, and the majority of staff said they would happily go in 3 times a week to the office, 3 times a week to be social. I think if I wasn't doing like semi-maternity leave, after being at the radio studio 6 days a week, and then lots from home, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, if I was going back 1 or 2 days. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
and especially, yeah, go ahead, Shannyn.
No, I totally agree with you. A couple days at home to get admin stuff done is important, right? You know, to really dig in and get things done. I think that's great. And I think being part of an office, especially in a fast-paced environment like a tech company or a startup where there's so much knowledge that changes hands every day very quickly, I do feel like there's some knowledge that is lost. So that opportunity to go in and hear what your peers are saying and hear the new ideas that are coming out, I think that's important. And I think that we benefited a lot from that in the companies I worked at previously, especially the tech companies where things are moving at such a fast pace that it's hard to keep up from home.
Yeah, I must admit, whilst I was at work, if there was something new going on, you'd know about it, you'd learn about it, and then you were on it. Something as simple as, say, give you an example of Instagram, the Instagram Reels. You know, it was just a different change in the, and I'm still like, what? You know, I haven't got a moment to do it. And it's also that buzz as well, isn't it? Mixing with people, the buzz of like someone coming up with an idea and then someone else coming up with, well, you know, those meetings. I'm never one for meetings for meeting's sake. I think you do get those people as well, don't you? So yeah, I think it's a balance. Wonderful. Let me just check the Q&A. See, we've got a little bit of time. Let's have a look here. I'm just trying to think anything associated with the discussion here. We are a world of huggers, respectful, and we lose most of our feelings when away from the social aspects of working with others or colleagues. Gossip is productive. Just look at Facebook and all other mediums. What do you say to that, guys?
Gossip. I mean, that's part of gossip, is part of social interaction. That's what people do. They've gone to, before offices, they went to the, you know, 2,000-3,000 years ago, they went to the marketplace to gossip. That was the office. So yeah, some things we do need social interaction, and I mean, I think it just, this extreme situation is going to make hopefully make us rethink old models, right? And why we do things, and especially, I mean, it's great to go to the office, but again, in certain areas like tech hubs where you have to commute for 2-3 hours a day. So 2-3 hours a day you spend in a car being frustrated every single day, probably your blood pressure is going through the roof. Is that worth it? And then I think we need to rethink, okay, if social interaction is important, then what can companies do to change the way offices are designed, located, where they're located, and so on, to make sure that you achieve that interaction without stressing out everybody.
Yeah, wonderful. Anything to add, Shannyn?
No, I agree. I mean, that makes sense. We got to think about that commute, and we got to think about what's actually serving the community around us.
Wonderful. Okay, let me just have another double check. See what we can do. I think we're okay, really, unless somebody wants to answer that question from David. Consumed.
Did we answer this question from Scott about the technologies? I mean, I would be interested, unless Alex has already.
Yeah, no, both go for it. What technologies are you exploring to support customer service strategies? And what are some of the criteria you consider when selecting a solution? Yeah, go for it. Shannyn?
I mean, our company, this is what we do. I mean, we are trying to help other companies improve their customer service experience. So when we look at things to help us, it's more on the side of how are we going to help brands be even more successful at helping their customers? So I kind of think this question is a little bit more, it's perfect for someone who works at Zappos in selecting, like, you know, how are you guys going to select your technologies kind of moving forward to help with customer experience?
I mean, it's again looking at the consumer and looking at what they need to accomplish, and starting with that consumer need or consumer makeup first, not saying, okay, there's chatbots are pretty hot now, so let's get a chatbot, and then we get the chatbot and I say, what do we do with it now? So it's thinking about, again, understanding that in the past, you know, the phone was the main avenue for customer service. Then it's email, then it's now text. There may be other ones, but it's really thinking through that customer experience, and not only the customer, but also the customer service agent. Because I had somebody who was pitching to me once some kind of video chat for customer service, but it was this classic thing like, oh, we have this video chat technology, let's try to sell it to Zappos. And when I asked them, have you been on the other side? Have you acted as a customer service agent ever? Because at Zappos we start every employee starts by being trained as a customer service agent. For 4 weeks, when I started, 4 weeks we were trained as that, and then we got on the phones on the second, third day, and it's extremely stressful. It's unbelievably stressful, right? And then you multitask, you look at a whole bunch of different screens, and then to be on a face-to-face call with a customer, it's absolutely freaking ridiculous. So, you know, to me, that's an example of, okay, technology in search of an application. So we try not to do that. We try to say, okay, and some customers don't want to chit chat on the phone. They want quick answers. Some don't want this immediate interaction on the phone, which is very a big commitment. I mean, you have to be there. Some want to do text, some want to do chat, and so on. So it's really thinking through that whole process.
Okay, well, thanks very much. I think we're done. So thank you very, very much indeed. You've got Alex Zhenov, Head of Customer Experience Research at Zappos.com, and of course, Shannyn with our lovely sponsor, First Orion. So thank you very, very much indeed. Thoroughly enjoyed that panel discussion. Have you had fun today?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Thank you so much for hosting.
Oh, no, not at all. Thank you guys for welcoming me and my co-host. Really appreciate you, and hopefully meet you again soon.
Great.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of the attendees and participants today. Thank you to all of our keynote speakers. Thank you to our media partners and our sponsor, First Orion. Thank you very, very much indeed. Remember, just log on to groupfuturista.com for the rest of the events, which are coming up next month for the end of 2021. And before we go, a big round of applause to our team at Group Futurista for working so hard behind the scenes to put on this fantastic webinar. So that's it from me, and hopefully I will see you very soon. Bye bye.